Japanese audience, when people come to an improv, do they know what they're getting into?
No. We have to train the audiences, the Japanese audiences, every single show. There was a long row of men just sitting there staring at me. I didn't even know who Kojima was. So I did performance capture. And they said, okay, this is the situation. Now can you escape?
Thanks for joining us on Unpacking Japan, proudly produced by our team at Zen Studio with the long-standing support of Zen Group. To keep these weekly stories coming, please consider subscribing. It's the best way to support the show and really makes a difference. And now, let's get into it. Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today I have the pleasure to welcome Christiane. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
You told me just before we started recording that you've lived 4 lives, and we have so many things to unpack today because you've been in Japan for quite a little bit, and you've had quite a career here in acting on screen, also off screen, doing some voice acting too, a lot of improv work, some coaching, a lot. But you've had some very interesting experiences too, being in Shin Godzilla. The movie, also working with Kojima-san and Death Stranding, I think one of the fans' favorites. So before we dive into all of this, I want to understand a little bit more about who's Christiane and what brought you here in the first place. Because you grew up in the UK, but then you quickly moved to places like Egypt, China, and more. Tell me a little bit about how that was for you, and at what point did Japan come into the picture?
I loved people from different countries. We had EFL students come and stay with us. So I would be the child that would appear at the end of the bed as the student was trying to study or relax. And I'd just stand there going, "What are you doing?" And at one point, my mum said, "You're not allowed to pass the boundary of the door. You have to stand outside the door." So I'd stand outside the door and I'd go, "What are you doing?" And I'm just a curious child. I wanted to know everything. So interested in different countries, different people from different countries. When I was after university, I ended up going to various countries in Europe because the low-cost carriers opened up. So I did lots of traveling. But then I got a job and I ended up looking after Europe, the Middle East and Africa. I was a global project manager. So it was quite a big job for a global corporation. And I went to Cairo. So I was on and off in Cairo for a bit. I could literally, my journey to the office was past the pyramids.
Oh, wow.
Which was my dream. You know,
It's this picturesque image that everyone sees always on TV, but when you actually commute past it, you've got the pyramids on one side, but the reality, so to say, on the other, right?
I think you've probably seen photos where it's this beautiful wonder of the world and crowds and traffic. But yeah, I could go past it every single day and I just thought, I'm living the life. And a colleague of mine said, "Oh, you're very good with people from other countries. You're so patient," which is not something my mother would say. So after I lost my job in that country, in Cambridge, after the Lehman Brothers
crash, 2008.
She said, "You should retrain as a TEFL teacher, just, until something happens with the market." And I was like, "No, I'm going to go to Dubai because I love the Middle East." I didn't go to Dubai. Then I retrained as a teacher, and I said, "I'm going to go to Saudi Arabia because that's the Middle East. It's the ultimate Middle East." And then I met a bunch of Italians and a teacher.
This is like the start of a movie. And then I met a bunch of Italians.
And then my first summer school was in Cambridge, and it was for a bunch of Italians. And my kind of mentor teacher said, "Why on earth are you going to Saudi Arabia, Christiane? You're so Italian." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She says. And so I decided to go to Italy. And that was I'm so glad I did. Because that was the start of like, okay. And then it was Italy, and then Japan, then China, then Italy, Cambridge a few times, and then Japan.
And this was all to teach English then at the time?
At the time, yeah. That's when I started traveling.
When was the first time you then actually came to Japan to teach English? Was this part of a specific program or an assignment that you had? Or how did that opportunity come to be?
I lived in southern Italy at the time, in Bari. And there's nothing to do on a Sunday. So we were sitting on the beach, a bit chilly. I was flying my kite. I used to fly my kite. That was my Sunday thing. And my friend said, "Hey, I've heard there's jobs going in Japan. Do you fancy it?" We had nothing to do. So I was like, okay, let's apply. Got in, and I thought, well, it's only 3 months. So if I like it, great. If I don't, it's only 3 months. Mm-hmm. It's an experience. Accommodation sorted, flights sorted, you get plonked into a university. So in my mind, I was like, the students are of a certain age. I don't want to work with kids. I'm too old for that. And then I ended up coming to Japan in 2010, I think it was.
So just before the big earthquake?
Yes. Yeah, just before.
Up until now, you mentioned that you grew up quite interested in students from foreign countries, in their culture. You mentioned a lot an interest for the Middle East. But you haven't mentioned Asia so much, or Japan. Had that at any point crossed your mind up until that point where you were at the beach and your friend was like, "Hey, there's a job offer there. Should you look into it?" Or was Japan just another country far away on the map, but not something that you kind of culturally or anything looked into?
Great question. We did have 2 Japanese students that stayed with us, and I couldn't talk to them. They were the one nationality of student that I couldn't talk to. They would come in, they would shut their door.
Oh, so you couldn't peek over and be like, "What are you doing?"
Couldn't do any of that. They would come in, they'd go upstairs. So they were like the untouchables. And because they weren't open to me, I felt that they wouldn't accept me. I was young. And the only other exposure we had to Japanese culture would have been monkey. I think it was monkey, the flying monkey on a cloud.
Sangoku.
It might
from
have been
Dragon Ball.
Yeah, that was it. And I thought it was great but I also thought that that was Japan. People used to wear those things and they'd fly around on clouds, or it was just a strange mystical culture who didn't want to talk to me. Yeah.
So with these kind of first impressions of Japan, when you get that offer, did you kind of have a renewed interest in it, or did you think back about those times when you had younger students at your house that you couldn't interact with, and is this going to be a challenge? Is it going to be interesting?
It was, let's see.
So where did you end up? Because you said flights and accommodation, everything was sorted, and you would go teach at the university for 3 months. Which university or which area did you end up in?
I ended up in, I got lucky actually, Nagoya.
Okay.
And I say I got lucky because it's a wonderful starter city, I think, because you can really focus on what's happening in Japan because there's less of the noise around you. So I worked at Sugiyama University, which was actually teaching young females how to teach. So I loved that because they were learning how to be elementary school teachers. So I really enjoyed working with them. And then after I went to Italy for a bit to do some studying. That's when the earthquake happened. So I was out of Japan for that. Came back and I went to Chukyo University and I started working on business. So I worked business English, which I loved. And then I realized how much I missed business and talking about business and doing business and being with serious people. So, yeah.
What were your first impressions of Japan when you actually arrived to live here? And you arrived in Nagoya, so I imagine you arrived at the airport there as well, Chubu International, I think it is. 2010, Japan was getting popular, but definitely not at the point where it is at today. How did you experience that those first 3 months?
Woohoo! Wow. I remember my eyes hurting because I've never flown that far before. I'd never experienced jet lag in that way. I'd never experienced being on an aeroplane for such a long while. And I remember having to wear sunglasses a lot when I first arrived.
Interesting.
Maybe the sun's different. So it was really new. I was younger then, very much into extracurricular activity. So it was just a wonderful chance to socialise with people from different parts of the world. That's the one thing I love about Japan, is that you get to meet some really smart, interesting people that kind of don't always fit in where they come from. Mm-hmm. We're all a bunch of oddballs, really. So that's what I enjoyed. I just took it for what it was just, it's only 3 months. Whee!
It's only 3 months, but despite going back for some training to Italy and some teaching in China, you decided to come back to Japan. Was there something in particular during those 3 months that made you like, I wanna try more?
Yeah. There's this feeling at the end of 3 months that it was like, I haven't experienced something. I don't know what it is, but there's something else to experience in this country. Don't know what it is, but I want to find it. I want to experience it. So it was kind of a bit of a mission, really, of like, not done here yet. Yum, yum, yum.
Something more to discover, so a reason to come back.
Yeah, yeah.
From everything you've told me up until now, acting was not mentioned once.
Nope.
It's not a career dream that you had maybe growing up, or at least you haven't mentioned it that way. So at what point in time on this journey up until now, when you kind of circled back to Japan once again, did this interest in acting, and specifically at the time I think you went into improv, come up?
Well, I was an actor when I was younger. So growing up, I was involved in the church, I was involved in the school, in those plays, and then the secondary school or high school, always doing stuff. I was very dramatic. In fact, the first time I was on stage, which I think changed everything for me, I was 5 years old. And do you know pantomimes?
Yeah.
Like the British pantomime. Mm-hmm. He's behind you. No, he's not. I got invited up on stage. I can't remember exactly why, but it was to answer a question or to prove one of the ugly sisters wrong or something. And I came up on stage. There was a few of us kids there, and we got asked a question and the others answered. And when I spoke into the mic, somebody changed my voice, and the audience pealed with laughter. And I was like, this is amazing to be in front of it. This was Cambridge Theatre, where I went back and performed a few times, actually, as a maturer child. And I was like, this is amazing. I want to make rooms of people feel joy. So I think that's where it sort of started.
So that was a very young age. And yet your career took a completely different path. And you were even saying that you missed working in business and corporate where people are serious. So how did these two directions coexist, and what tipped the balance to end up going more for the acting?
Oh, you're very good at putting me back on the right path, Toby. Well, I did up until the age of 14, 15. Yeah, 15. I did theatre. I was a theatre baby. And then I got my first job at 16, and it was a MVQ, so you have to learn on the job. Mm-hmm. So there was no time to go to regular rehearsals. And now I'm a serious working woman, age 16, know the world. Mm-hmm. Couldn't even drive, didn't even know how to use the bus, because of that, everything stopped. And it wasn't until I came to Tokyo, I can't remember when I came to Tokyo, but maybe 2 years after coming here originally. And I took one improv class, and I was like, I remember this. Yeah, it was that feeling of like, pow, 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 pow. Yeah, little things happening. And because I was so entrenched in the English teacher's life, we would live, I started teaching at Kanagawa University, and we'd live close. We'd go to work together. We'd hang out together. And I just wanted to escape them because I didn't particularly like all of them, to be honest. There's only so much you can take. And I wasn't interested in drinking all the time anymore because, I'm an adult. And so there it was. I was like, I'm going to find something for myself. And I was like, oh, what's this? And the photo was an action shot of people doing this. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. Mm-hmm. I want to be a tree.
For people that don't know, have never seen, or what's an improv class? They can maybe imagine, okay, you improvise something. But what does it actually entail? How do you train and practice improv?
You learn techniques to be able to do a scene. Yeah. So an improv class would basically give you the tools and the techniques in order to build the skills so that when you go on stage, if you want to go on stage, you don't have to, so that when you go on stage, you can forget everything else and just be in the moment. So a typical thing would be yes and. Have you heard of that before?
I may have, but not in that context. Right. So feel free to elaborate.
It's the famous one of yes and. I think yes and is a better description for brand new people, mm-hmm. where somebody offers a suggestion, a statement. For example, let's go for pizza. And then you yes and it by saying, yes, and let's have double cheese on our pizza. So you're just adding to their idea. Mm-hmm. I think when you get past the initial learning stages, that first year or two, I think it takes a good 2 years to be to know improv. I think it's more about accepting and building, and then it's more cerebral. It's like, I'm going to accept what you say and then build on it, and you can. There's so much. Yeah, I can't.
There's a lot, and that is often broken down into different schools.
Yeah.
Right. On this podcast, we've talked to people that follow different schools of kendo or kind of different Japanese arts. What are different schools of improv? Is it some people do yes and some people do no and, or what kind of are the main different approaches to improvisation on stage?
There's a lot of people that say no and. So you have your fundamentals, which is your yes and. You have yes and don't block, so don't negate an offer. Listening. So you have those basic fundamentals. But then the different schools of improv talk about different styles. So one school would be the game of a scene. Another one would be the narrative of a scene. And then, of course, over time, different schools have all melded into to one another. And then you have people like me, I guess, who will play different things in a show. In America, for example, if you're connected to Second City, you play Second City style. UCB style. Keith Johnstone at the Loose Moose, for example, in Vancouver. But there's also Keith Johnstone masters around the world, but they're also well versed in like Second City, for example. So it becomes this wonderful mesh. And I think that produces the best teacher because they have access to all of these, the good bits from all the different schools. And it allows the improviser to be accepting of all of the schools, just the same as a child being accepting of all the different people coming into their home. Just, you're all cool, let's be friends type thing.
Is improv something that is more of a theater form in and in itself, that people learn improv to do improv pieces on stage? Or is it something that people tend to seek out more as a skill to be able to implement those techniques into a piece that's been scripted or into other fields of their life? Could be work presentations and learn how to adapt and adjust to situations, or what is kind of the typical path for people that go into improv?
Wow. All of the above.
All of the above.
It really depends. I mean, there are some people who go to improv classes just for fun because they want to escape. Probably similar to me when I first refound it, just to escape. And then there's people who are like me, who are just like, yeah, I want to play, I want to perform, I want to have audiences feel joy. And there's other people, maybe more so in America, I don't know, who are like, yeah, I want to do this and I want to get on SNL or something. So they have very specific goals. As we talked about before we started, it's all about the journey.
It's all about the journey,
isn't it? You're never really at the end because the end just keeps moving.
So for you, when you started this, at the beginning, it was a way to kind of escape from your routine, university, home, work, and just discover something else. And it clicked again with that childhood feeling you had when you were on that stage and someone changed your voice and the audience erupted in laughter. When you did this at the beginning in Japan, I imagine it was English improv class. So the community probably relatively small at the time. How long did you kind of go into this? And at what point did you decide, no, I want to do more than just the little classes. I want to go back on stage. I want to perform. I want to move more into this world.
Good question. It might have only been about 9 months of once a week classes, maybe even less, probably less, knowing me, 6 months. If I know I want to do something, I want to do it, and I'm going to do it. So as soon as I'm a little bit neurospicy, so as soon as I find something that gets me, I'm like, oh, gobble, 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 and I'll do everything I can to gobble that up. So that's what happened, was that that feeling of like, I need to do more of this. So I started doing as much as possible. I set up my own group as well. I mean, it was a bit like Lord of the Flies, to be honest, in the rehearsal room, but we all wanted to play more.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was fun. It was very fun. I did that for 2 years. So just like up to 3 nights a week, do more. I joined the Pirates of Tokyo Bay,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
auditioned for them, and I got in, and I was like, this is great. Now I can play with friends. And and then soon after that, I got invited to perform on the main stage at Improvzilla, and I've been there. So I've been with both groups now for about 14 years, performing for 14 years.
Wow. So still with the Pirates of Tokyo Bay and Improvzilla.
Yes.
14 years later.
Yeah.
So it started as one class, as a getaway class. 6 months later, turned into an obsession in a way, if I may phrase it like that.
Yes, you may.
And 14 years later, you're still at it.
Yeah.
Tell me about the community of improv. So the Pirates of Tokyo Bay and Improvzilla, like how many stages? Where do people perform? Like what's the audience like? How is that seen here in Japan? Because especially in English language, in a country that doesn't speak English that much to the point of going to theater and watch these shows. What was the community and what was it like to do this in Japan? And have you ever thought of, I want to commit to this. I need to go back to the UK or go back to New York if I want to, or the US if I want to have a career in that?
Great question. You're so good at questions. The audiences are very different. What I heard there was community, community, audience, and where do I take it from here? So community, if you want to do improv, I think it takes a lot of courage just to get your foot through the door for the first lesson. And you will probably hate the first lesson if you're a normal person who's not desperate to make audiences feel joy. So we have a common ground of being brave and being vulnerable just by putting our foot through that door. So that's a beautiful thing. And it's the unspoken connection that we have. On the other hand, it does attract a lot of oddballs as well. So you take the rough with the smooth, as with anything in life. So that's the community. And we're generally nice people because who isn't desperate to be connected to something? And I think improv gives you that opportunity because you have to do that on stage. You have to listen. One of the core things is to make your partner look good, because that takes away the fear and the desire to do a good job from yourself. It sorts out your own ego. So by taking care of your partner and putting all your attention on your partner, then it means I'm not thinking about myself. So everyone is theoretically thinking of everyone else. Yeah, so it's a beautiful community. Plus we do silly things together and we laugh.
And you make the audience laugh.
And we make the audience laugh. Well, yes and no. There's comedy improv and there's theatrical improv.
Okay.
So I do both. I didn't realise there was more than one. It just turned out that way, that I'm good at both. And musical improv. I do musical improv as well. So there's your community. Audiences, English-speaking audiences with Improvzilla and the other shows that I've done around the world, generally they know English. India would be, there was a mixture of languages in the audience there. And then, of course, Pirates of Tokyo Bay is bilingual. So we have Japanese and English at the shows. So you have to, when I perform in English, I have to do it in a way that helps the Japanese audience still enjoy it, which generally means big movements, slower speaking, just changing slightly. But with English only audiences, I can do whatever. I just have to be a bit mindful of the culture, like which country am I in? When I performed in Dubai, we had to be really careful about not crossing certain boundaries, no religion, no sex, no mention of drugs, homosexuality. It was all which was really hard for a group of 150 improvisers.
I can imagine. The topics that you just mentioned are often the topics that, trigger the audience quite easily in good and bad ways, and then are maybe interesting for you on stage to interact with.
Right.
To then go back to how you were doing it in Japan, you mentioned you have to do a lot of movements to kind of communicate things, to also bring the Japanese audience into to the play. We've talked to a couple of people on the podcast that have been into Japanese puppet theater, rakugo, or kabuki, no theater. They don't seem to have too many elements of improv in there. It seems to be a lot of very traditional storytelling with modern interpretations as well and such. How well or how known is this art form, theater form in Japan, when you maybe talk with the audience afterwards of improv and what it is, that it's not a Shakespeare, but it's people on stage kind of making up a story, interacting with each other as they go? And where do you draw the line between that and, I don't know, kind of comedy where you might be doing stand-up comedy and work the audience that is also in a way improv?
Can you reduce the question a little bit? Because my little brain is just popping at the moment.
That was very loaded. So let me rephrase this. The Japanese audience may not be too familiar with improv as a form of theater. How well known is it at all? Like, when people come to an improv, do they know what they're getting into and what to expect on the show? What kind of theater this is?
No. No, they don't. So for the pirate shows, for example, we have to train the audiences, the Japanese audiences, every single show. It's a very niche theatrical practice in Japan. It's growing. There are Japanese teams out there. Yoshimoto, for example, has got a Japanese team that were taught by Second City. So there are teams out there of various different schools, if you like, generally narrative. And when a Japanese person comes to one of our shows, it takes a lot for them to go anyway. And they probably think it's stand-up. We get that all the time, like, oh, you do stand-up. I used to, but so you have to train them how to give suggestions. You have to give them permission to laugh when they find something funny, not when everyone else is laughing. So you'll probably know yourself. The ideas are just scooting around there. You get them to laugh once, and that's the permission. And then if your neighbour is laughing, well, that's okay. That means I can laugh. And so it's like a knock-on effect. It's a very crude way of describing it all. But
what have you noticed tends to make maybe a Japanese audience laugh versus a foreign audience? We talked recently to someone that has also done manzai. And manzai has this build up and this ochi, which is the permission to laugh. And everyone knows this is coming, something is coming, it's funny, everyone laughs. And that works. In improv, you never really know, I think, when it's coming. Or there might be jokes, I imagine, from the actors that may require some kind of cultural understanding as well of what is supposed to be funny about this. So to go back to my question, what makes a Japanese audience laugh in your experience, the 14 years on stage here in Japan versus maybe a foreign audience?
So for the Pirates of Tokyo Bay, it's short form. So we package things within games. And with a game, we describe what the game is, and the audience will know what the end of the game is. So therefore, they have that expectation of, this is what's going to happen. Therefore, I can relax and enjoy the story or the silliness that's going to unfold. We would stop the game on a big laugh, and that would be the end of the game. The types of thing that will make them laugh will be probably similar to Manzai, really similar to Manzai. Silliness. You have your straight man, funny man. This is not for every single game, but you have straight man, funny man. Big expressions, comedic tropes that the Japanese can recognize from television, from Manzai performers. I don't perform in Japanese myself. It's too hard.
The bar is too high. Yeah,
it's just that's not my goal. But I get to watch it every single week when we go to practice, and I watch my colleagues perform at practice.
Quite interesting. On this,
but Japanese people still find me funny because it's like Pavlov's dogs. I've been trained by watching and observing. I'm a pretty good at observing. That's basically my bread and butter. And it's learned behavior. Oh, that's a laugh. Okay. Store it in the subconscious. And you just know that the bigger expressions, what types of characters would perhaps spark, that sort of thing. So they still find me funny, even in English. They don't understand a word of what I say. Well, some might.
A lot of experience on stage. Your life kind of moves away from teaching at that time into performance. But you've also performed on screen, notably in the Shin Godzilla movie. When did you, or how did that opportunity come about for you to step off the stage a little bit and kind of into a studio to record and work on set with movie? How did that come about?
That was 2016, I think. And I think it was probably my first audition ever, apart from theatre. That doesn't count because that's all the time. So, it was my first on-screen audition, and we got given a script and I had to learn a bunch of words. Well, nobody told me to, but I was just like, I have a script, therefore I must learn it. So I learned it. I walked in, and it was what we call in Tokyo a cattle call. So everyone was called because they don't quite know what they're looking for, or they're looking to put several people together and they want to get a view of people. And I walked in, and I was in the same group as a colleague of mine that I've known for years. So it kind of felt quite comfortable anyway, because we've been improvising together for years anyway. And I just did it.
Was it something you sought out at the time? You're like, oh, I want to audition for movies? Or was it an ad in a newspaper, or someone on a beach, not in Italy, but on a beach in Tokyo, telling you, hey, do you see this offer? There's like a movie play they're looking for a cast.
It was, there's a number of foreign talento agencies in Tokyo. And I think I'd registered with one because I was curious about voice. I was interested in doing voice work, which I had started to do little bits. And the agency said, oh, we have this opportunity. Can we put you forward? And I was like, okay, And that was it.
So when you arrive at this audition and you don't really know what they're looking for, they don't really know what they're looking for, and you have a lot of actors. I imagine you've got one shot to go through your script. How do you approach it in terms of you need to convey something that may resonate with the panel that will decide on whether or not you get the role? You read this text, you stand in front of them. How do you decide, and how do you go on about your performance at that day?
And I think in 2016, ignorance was the thing that made it so easy for me. I had no idea what was happening. Didn't really speak Japanese. I didn't have a clue. So I just walked in and I knew I had to say something. And all I did was I followed this. I listened to my partner. I just did an improv scene. I don't think I got the script word for word, but I started improvising, doing space object work, which no one else does. And I was like, well, why is no one else doing what I'm doing? Oh, well, carry on, drink of water type thing. So ignorance was the thing that helped me just get through. I just did what I did. I read the script. I was like, okay, this is an office lady, but she's a scientist. She's serious. She's got some really big words to say. How does that feel? And that was the process back then. The process now is a lot different, a lot more involved.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I trained a lot. Hours and hours, hundreds of pounds of training. Yeah. So it's different. I don't have ignorance on my side anymore.
But that day it helped, and you got a role in Shin Godzilla, which is a movie that many fans love.
I was walking up the steps of Ochanomizu station, and I got the phone call from my agent when people used to phone people. And I was midway up the steps. I nearly fell down. It was very dramatic. And I remember I was speechless and everything drained out of my mouth. And it was like a backdraft of water, like, and then I was like, whoa.
What was the experience like on that movie, on set, on playing, on getting into character?
Just fun. I got to wear an outfit. I loved dressing up as a child. I got to wear an outfit. I got to be someone else for the day. I knew my lines, so it didn't matter. I had to do an American accent, which, I mean, it was a bad American accent back then. Yeah, and I was important for the day. And I got to watch huge. We were in the control room. The scene was the control room where we were delivering the really bad news about nuclear. I can't remember how nuclear Godzilla was. And I didn't know who was famous and who wasn't. Again, ignorance on my part. Everybody is just as lovely as everyone else, you know, that everyone's just human. We're all trying to have a good time, you know, get through the day. So I'd talk to anyone if they could speak English, because Japanese was terrible. And yeah, I just loved watching people and doing their thing. And the cameramen as well. It was like the first time on a really big set, and so many people doing so many things. And I was like, oh, trying to focus. And yeah.
How big was the set? How do we imagine? Because a lot of people know of Hollywood, but cinema production in Japan is quite big. But from the little bits and pieces I've heard talking with you and other guests, it's done quite differently. It's much more in set, in studio. How is the space? And
we were on location, actually. I think it might have been Chiba, maybe. Massive, like, imagine an old school gym. It was that size. And then you had the tables, control tables in the middle. camera crew around the side, whiteboards, control, like what do you call them? Emergency boards, all part of the set. And people just knew exactly what they had to do at any point. Crew-wise, you had various cameramen, no women, lighting, and then runners. So, I mean, the crew were probably a third of the size of the cast. The crews in Japan are big. Yeah, everyone needs a job. And they work incredibly hard, incredibly long hours. Huge.
Has it made you want to do more cinema after kind of having that experience, going through the audition, being on set, getting into character in front of cameras as opposed to in front of the audience directly?
At that point, not really. It was just another job. I loved it. Oh, wouldn't it be great? But I think what I wanted more was to play and to tell stories, character stories. I think that was the main thing still at that point. It wasn't about on-camera work.
But you've done a different kind of on-camera work as well when you continued by doing a lot of motion capture. You've stepped into roles in Death Stranding, where your character is now in the game through your movements. How, with Hideo Kojima and his game that kind of came out a few years ago, got a lot of people quite curious, interested, and grew a big fan base. Again, how did that come to be, and where does this? What's the story behind that experience?
Well, it's the kind of thing you read about in magazines. Like, I was just walking down the street and they just approached me. It literally was, somebody saw me on stage and I was in an improv show and I must have just been using my body. The type of improv that we do at Improvzilla is like a montage. We do like little games, little short scenes, and then we do the full-length musical. So one of the production, I think it was the musical director actually, who saw me and then went back and said to Kojima, it might have been Kojima or one of the producers, and said, I think I found someone who would be perfect for this role. And then they rang around all the Tokyo agencies trying to find me, which I know, I felt ever so important when I found out the story, because they were just trying to find little old me.
Couldn't they have just come back to the place where you had just played and asked, who was this lady playing last night?
You would have thought, wouldn't you? But we only perform once a month.
Okay.
So I guess, I don't know, time is money. You got to chop. So I did an audition for the lead, but I didn't get it. And I was like, I don't care. I've had a great time. I walked into the room. There was a long row of men just standing there, just sitting there staring at me. I didn't even know who Kojima was. I kind of figured it out that man was the most important man in the room. You get the vibe. Again, observing skills. Not speaking Japanese fluently and being an improviser, you soak up vibes.
You focus on the non-verbal cues.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I did the first audition and didn't get it, no problem. But then they called me back and they'd moved the audition date so I could join.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's really nice of them. I didn't realize that was unusual because I'd not experienced it before. And when I came back, Ken, the big producer, I didn't realize who he was. He opened the door and he said, oh, you're the Apple lady. The Apple lady. And I was like, yeah, how did you know?
Yes, and
that was it.
Yeah.
So, and then I went in and I did the second audition, and that's when I got cast as Mama and Lockney. And I did a lot of side characters as well, because of the adaptability, ranging from child to old lady.
How does it work to do this kind of like motion capture? Do you get like into the suit where they put all the sensors and you then...
So you've got motion capture and you've got performance capture. Motion capture is like dots on the suit. Performance capture is dots on the suit plus headgear with the camera and the dots on the faces, because you're capturing the expressions. So I did performance capture with Mama and Lockney. And I don't know if I did performance capture. No, I did do performance capture with the side characters, I think.
How complicated is it? Because I'm imagining you're on stage, you step into a character, you perform in front of your audience. In your mind, you're the character, but you're interacting with a partner and you've got an audience. You're on set for a movie, you step into a costume, you play with other actors that are in costume, and you're on a set that looks like. But when you do that, I'm imagining a room that's relatively empty, with maybe cameras around, and just you moving without seeing what's going on and how it is, and you don't see how it's going to look like in the game. And how do you approach recording something like that?
For example, the audition. Nothing there, just a carpeted room and a row of men. Story of my life. And I walk in, and I, yoroshiku. And they said, okay, this is the situation. Now can you escape? I was like, okay. So what happens in my head is I place objects around the room. I guess it's almost like a computer game. It's not that fancy, really. It's just my brain. And it's like, boop, 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 boop. And you have a car there. You've got a lamppost here. And you just choose different objects to be like anchor pieces, just to help dress the set in your mind. And then you avoid them, jump over them, bang into them, roll around, get smacked by them, and you just believe that you're doing it. Really,
sounds like the improv really came in handy.
Basically,
to kind of adjust and adapt to all these situations.
Yeah, again, ignorance. I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this. Sure, no problem. Another one was you're camping and I want you to prepare a fish. Okay, no problem. I got my fishing rod out and they said, you don't have to. I started trying to put the maggot on the end of the line and they said, you don't have to do that. You've already got the fish. And I was like, oh, okay. It was just, I'm quite good at taking direction as well. I create the world. If that's not the world that you want, just give me a slight adjustment and I can tweak. Another one was a supermarket. That was the mama one. Because I had a baby. I had a pretend baby, like invisible baby. And I was in the supermarket. And I had a whole scene. I created a whole scene with my baby and other people in the shop, but there was no one else there. And I think that possibly was something that they hadn't seen before. I know that some of the other people that were in the audition room weren't improvisers, may or may not have been actors. I'm not sure.
How did you feel when you then saw the final result and you saw your movements on screen?
I could see myself. It was nuts. Yeah, it was nuts. Somebody did a solid, and on YouTube they collated all of the Mama Lockney scenes together. I think it was about 50 minutes worth. And I can see, like, when I first met Sam and she comes walking across the garage like this, and I was like, oh my God, she's even got the thing with my foot. That's nuts.
Wow.
Move of the arm, the hand. It is literally, yeah, it's, and when she's laying there with the I don't know if you know the story, but she's being hit by the rainfall, which ages you. And you could just, I remember that. And then when the baby goes as well, and I remember that scene. We filmed the scene. We did it in one take because I had to learn all the lines. That's performance capture. You do the lines. It's not just, okay, now scream. You have to do the whole scene with nobody else there. You're on your own, occasionally working with other people in the scene. And I remember it was 7 or 8 minute scene. Me and Sam, and then Sam kind of goes off and I have to go and do something, and different scenes within the scene, but it ends up with Mama basically killing her baby and releasing herself from the child. It's really emotional. It's beautiful. And we finished that and they were like, "Gatto." And it was one of those moments where I'm like, oh, I did a good job. Everyone's really quiet. Nice. You know, the emotion, not only had I given an audience joy in other scenes, but in that particular moment, I realized that I could affect people emotionally. And that's when it got me.
I was just trying to picture that scene you were describing with the rain and the baby, but then at the same time imagining that you were just alone in that room and kind of just performing. And it's kind of crazy to think and to imagine how things are made and for you to experience this all along. And all of that because one night you were on stage and someone saw you and like, oh, she's the one for this job. And a few months later, you're recording yourself in these motions. It's been a few years that you're in Japan at that point, and you mentioned earlier that after your first 3 months, there was something more you wanted to discover, and you kind of came back because of that. Now that you kind of pivoted your career from the teaching into improv, and then also doing a little bit of movies and video game or performance capture, had you started finding what you were looking for in Japan, or were you did you find what kept you here?
I did at the time, yeah, which was nature and mountains. I come from Cambridge, which it's nothing.
Flat and
so
fields
flat.
And a little bit of forest.
Yeah, it's flat. I think I walked up a hill before. And when I returned, I went hiking with a group of hikers. And I say hiking, we walked to the top of a hill with some flowers on it. And I thought it was the most magical thing ever. I'd also broken up with my boyfriend. So I was very sad. But there was light at the end of the tunnel type thing. And actually, this is bizarre. I lost my mum. And I think it was within a year, I went to Egypt. This is before I started working with Egypt. And I climbed Mount Sinai.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that same feeling of finding absolute peace at the top of Mount Sinai, just going, oh, I'm going to be all right. You know, thanks, Mum. And I think with the hike with my friends, and they let me have a few tears with an egg sandwich in the rain. I had such a great day. And I was like, I'll be all right. And that was my next obsession, was mountains.
So you spent a lot of time hiking through Japan.
A lot of time hiking.
You said you found your meaning in what you're looking for at the time. Has something changed and evolved over the years? That the mountains were what kept you here at the time, but now it maybe turned into something else?
Yeah, the mountains became that obsession for the moment, ending in Kilimanjaro. So it was
also beyond Japan.
Beyond Japan, and I started going to different countries. I didn't mention this earlier, but in order to feed the improv, I would travel to different countries to receive training. and to perform for different audiences. And I helped set up a group in India, in Bangalore as well. So having all this access to travel, for me, it was like, right, we have the stage clothes, we have the hiking boots, everything would just, and that would be my trip, a busman's holiday, I think they call it. So yeah, that became the obsession, ending in Kilimanjaro, and and then it's had to stop because I hurt myself. So that put an end to my climbing career.
Mountains no more, but the void was filled again, I imagine, or is being filled maybe?
And filled in a different way. I still do nature, very much so. And I continued swimming. I was a big swimmer, which also helped with the neurospiciness, meditation type thing. But now the thing that is keeping me here is basically the performance stuff.
The Pirates of Tokyo Bay, Improvzilla, the community, the people that are performing here, that are building something.
Yeah.
Where does that leave you now, 14 years into your career in acting and performing, where you kind of have clearly developed this? You mentioned setting up as well improv groups elsewhere and doing a lot more work than just your own performances. Where does that leave you now today? What are your projects that you're working on that you want to build from here? I imagine it's beyond just the regular weekly performances.
I think in Japan you have to, for me, I've had to keep reinventing myself. Technically, I'm Madonna. I reinvent myself every 7 years, perhaps. So we're coming into the next period. Plus, I turn 50 this year, which I'm quite excited about. So I think it's another rebirthing moment. So the current thing for me is I'll continue with my teaching. I'll continue with acting teaching. I'm doing acting and improv coaching. I love that. I love helping people feel better about who they are and to do better. Whatever that may be. Everyone's individual, and I love that puzzle. So I'll continue to do that. My latest project. Okay. Round about a year ago, I started a group of actresses in Japan because I was desperate to find a community with actresses where we could talk about what we have to put up with on set, what we have to put up with agents, just to have some sort of support network. As with a lot of things in Tokyo, they don't always get off the ground unless there's one person pushing it. And I was a bit tired of pushing. And we had a meeting and only 3 of us turned up. And I was like, okay, let's just mess around. So we didn't talk about anything that we were going to talk about, any of the goals for the year. We just started mucking about, basically. And what happened was we created a story. And we're like, wouldn't that be funny if we put that on stage? Wouldn't that be funny? And you could be this person, you could be this person, you could be this person. Oh, yeah. Because in Tokyo or Japan, you're not offered things. Women my age, there's not a lot out there. So you have to create for yourself, always be creating. And so we started writing a play, an immersive murder mystery play, so scripted and improvised. There's a mixture of the two. We've got a cast of 8, 9 characters.
Interesting.
Yes, I can tell by your eyebrows. I'm trying to think what I can and can't say. And it will be on in Tokyo in November.
So people that are interested, we'll put all your links in the description so they can stay up to date with this project whenever it is available for the public to see on stage. Interesting to see once again, it kind of happened by chance in a way. A meeting that was supposed to be about something else turned into a new play that people can experience on stage. You mentioned about this meeting, it was supposed to be a sort of support group for women to deal and discuss with a lot of the things that you have to deal with. And throughout our conversation, you mentioned a couple of times the long rows of men in these audition rooms and such. What are some of the things that people should know about this industry, that if they're interested to go into that, they might have to deal with these and these things, and how to adapt to that?
Well, as you know, Japan is low on the equality scale. I can't remember our latest, but I think we might be 126 out of 146. We're quite low. As a young woman in Japan, it's difficult. As an older woman in Japan, is it more difficult? Or I'm not sure. It's difficult just for women. Just because it's going to take a long while to break a culture that has been molded over years and years and years. That's all. These things take time. And I believe that women within the performance industry need to advocate for themselves. They need to help educate the men within the performance industry, their friends within the performance industry, or just generally, actually. My partner, for example, American man, before he met me, he just went along his life just enjoying Japan. And I think by meeting me has helped open his eyes up to what happens to females within Japan and things they have to, how they're treated, things that they have to put up with. That there is an imbalance. Not that I'm not blaming him for not being aware of it, but you can be aware and ignore, that's a problem. You can be aware and be aware. You can be aware and then advocate. So the various different stages. So I think if women want to get into the performance industry, they have to advocate for themselves. They have to this is a huge one. It's not really one I can unpack.
So maybe something that people can discuss when they join possibly another meeting of a support group in Tokyo.
That won't happen.
That won't happen. Or an online community of actresses that support each other here in this industry.
I think actually the best way to deal with this is not we can't go into it now, but for people to ask somebody, what is your experience? Mm-hmm. What is your experience on a film set in Japan? And just ask an individual person, a female, whatever their age, just be curious about other people's experiences in Japan, and that your experience is not the only experience that to be had. There's a lot of people who are trying to do a job, to have a good life, to find themselves, to be creative. Just be curious about somebody else's journey to fuel your own journey and open up your understanding of other human beings.
And today we heard a lot about your journey. You've had so many interesting projects, some of which we haven't really gone into. Are there some other of your works and experiences over the years, plays that maybe I didn't ask you about today that you would like to talk about, that maybe you've had some good and fantastic experiences with, that maybe people can take away as a positive message to kind of get into this and go and see plays and get them curious about improv and your work and that of the other artists?
I would say that one of the most joyful things is to be able to have a show. I do tours in schools, is to do a show in a school, like Macbeth, for example, with Black Stripe Theatre Company. We toured that in schools, and the amount of children that said, that's the first time I've ever seen a play before, just makes you burst, because they're just like, wow. And I just hope that that's the start of something for them, just like it was for me. And I hope that they go home to their parents and say, Mum, Dad, why haven't you taken me to the theatre? Because theatre or live performance is the most magical thing you can have in a community. You experience the same thing, but your emotional connection is different to what you're seeing because you have different life experiences. And then after that, you get to talk to people about their experience or not. Depends how private you are. But there is English theatre in Tokyo. And if we don't go and see it and we don't support it, then we can't do it. I mean, the show we're producing in November, huge risk. You know, we're self-producing. We're being very vulnerable by putting out a creative piece of work for everyone to criticise if they choose to do so, or enjoy. That's my thinking. They will enjoy it because nobody has ever done anything like this in Tokyo. So go to watch people do the thing that they're good at.
And find a little bit of joy in the play. And from what you just told as well, I think very important to see that it's not just about the big performances, but you can have an impact by performing anywhere, whether it's for your own career or for the people around and the children in school. So a lot of things to take away from theater and maybe something to experience a little bit more. We'll make sure all the links, as I mentioned before, are in the description so people can follow through on that show and go experience that in Tokyo once it's out in November. And thank you so much, Christiane.
Thank you
for coming and sharing your experiences, your journey to Japan. And I hope people enjoyed it. I certainly did.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. This was Unpacking Japan, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Wow. What a journey. All over the world. Thanks for sticking with us until the end. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to Unpacking Japan. It's the best way to help us grow and ensures we can keep bringing you these deep dives every week. Till next time, take care.